Welcome to this mini workshop on how to write an unhinged tagline and title so you sell out. Now, this can be applied to anything, whether it's your social taglines or your bio or the name of your framework or the name of your masterclass or your workshop or your offer. One of the biggest problems that I see is that many titles and taglines aren't unhinged enough. They don't have enough emotive language or powerful language or are bizarre or in some way grabbing people's attention with that hook or something that people haven't heard before. And this can be one of the biggest reasons why you're not selling out. Not because you're not good enough, not because you don't have all the expertise and that the program isn't wonderful. It can all come down to the tagline and the title. And I'm recording this workshop for the club because inside the club, there's a space for you to post your offer and post your workshop, and members vote on the offers and workshops that they want. And then we pay members for delivering these services. So I also want to use this workshop so you can write the best offer and workshop so that you can get as many votes as possible. But whether you're inside the club or not, this mini tutorial will help you raise up the interest and the hook and the excitement and the magnetism of your titles and taglines. Now, the reason that this is one of my specialties is that I have had a career in writing and digital marketing. And there has been so much of my career that it has all come down to 6 words or 60 characters, and I've had to put so much thought and energy and time to make sure they are as powerful as possible. And I've done every type of writing and marketing and headlines and subject lines. And something we say in the industry is that it is almost important to spend as much time on the title or the headline or the tagline as it is creating the entire piece of content. Because the title or the tagline or the email subject line or the SEO line is what really makes the difference between getting a 50, 60% conversion rate or a 10% conversion rate. It doesn't matter what's inside. It doesn't matter what the content is. You have about 3 seconds for people to decide if this short little title or tagline is interesting and magnetic. And I've used these tactics throughout my career to manage 6-figure email newsletter lists and boosting website traffic from 3 to 4 million visitors a month, or even boosting organic traffic through SEO by 2000% by changing titles, by boosting how we present the content. And today I apply these strategies to my business and branding mentorship. And I see so often how people write titles and taglines that really don't say what their services are about, or they don't go into enough depth. People have great products, but they don't know how to sell it. They don't know how to write about it. So I want to talk about the 4 components that sell in a title or a tagline. Now, the first component is confidence. People buy confidence, not products. You are a walking example of your products. So you should choose a topic or transformation that you feel confident about, that you could sell in your sleep, that you could talk about all day long, that you could fill a full 60 minutes and more with all your knowledge. Because when you bring that confidence while you're writing your taglines and your titles, people will feel that in the words. When we write words, they impart an energy. And you could probably think about when you've read certain titles or products, sometimes you can feel really magnetized to one. You know that they know what they're talking about. You can feel it. So bringing confidence is such a key part of selling. And I remember I had a client once and she had a 90% success rate with her clients, but there were some people that she couldn't help. So there was kind of this fine print to her statement. So she never really used this statement. And I said, think about the medication ads. They make this big, bold statement on TV about what the medication will fix. Then at the end, there's this really fast text of all of the side effects and maybe it won't work for these situations and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We understand there's always going to be outliers or people that you can't help or situations where it might not work. But I always think about the medication ads. Be confident about what you're selling. Be confident about the transformation. So before you go to write your offer or your framework or your titles, bring that confidence. Know that you are already the expert at what you do and write with that energy and that confidence behind your titles. And this brings us to our second core component, and that is conviction. Your title needs to make a statement, a claim, or a declaration. So you can see confidence and conviction are really tied together. What claim can you make with confidence that your products or services or offers or frameworks can help people with. And I have a very simple example of this with one of my clients. We retitled one of her masterclasses to Stop Snoring for Life. We made a claim with conviction. Some other examples might be how to get your first client, how to reach 10K months. We see it everywhere. People making claims, statements, declarations. And this is really the difference of people who are selling out their workshops and people who aren't. Then this brings us to our third aspect, which is to add a clarifier. Clarify who it's for or what the specific outcome or time frame or audience or A to B transformation is going to be. And this can just add that little bit more clarity of who exactly is this offer or workshop for. People want to see themselves in the title. We often think that by niching down or getting too specific can actually scare away people, but we are honestly inundated with titles and taglines. So people instantly want to know, is this for me? Isn't this for me? So maybe you do somatic services and you do repatterning or you break old behaviors or whatever that might be. To add a clarifier, you might say a workshop for emotional regulation for neurodivergent people with trauma. Or you might put a time frame or deadline. So make 10Ks in 6 months. Or it might be about the transformation from overthinking to a peaceful mind in 3 steps. So we can start to see how these elements of confidence, conviction, clarity really change a very ambiguous title into a very specific hook that's actually really magnetic to people who have these exact problems. And if I think about some titles like Return Back to Your Alignment or Rediscover Yourself, they remain pretty ambiguous unless you're going to put a semicolon with a convicting statement or clarifying a deadline or who exactly it is for. So imagine that you're saying return back to your alignment, a 3-step process to go from overthinking and self-doubt to your highest potential. Already we can start to see more clarity, more attraction, more hook by adding more detail, by adding something that makes statements, that shows the outcome, that makes a promise. And the final core component is to add a touch of creativity. Is each word worth the space? Now, this is something I learned in newspaper writing, where actually you used to pay per word, or a page would be paid by an advertiser. So you really had to make sure that every word held its weight. Or if you think about how people used to pay for words in things like classified, if you were selling a car, you wouldn't say, beautiful, pretty red car. You would say, red car, like new. Right? Because each word has to be worth the space. And so in newspaper writing, we often would do these exercises where you would rewrite the title over and over again until you could pack in as much meaning in the least amount of words as possible. So even if we think about a newspaper title, man runs into shopfront. Now you might rearrange it and say, man smashes $1 million shopfront with car. And we can start to see how we can add more meaning or more power or more hook into a title with the same amount or not many more words. So really play around with your titles, move them around, think of different words. And this brings us to the next point. Are you using power words? The most magnetic titles or magnetic hooks are ones that have emotive words, pressure words, psychological words, or you might use unusual words or words out of context or fantasy words or made up words that are your own framework. All of these things make people stop the scroll and say, oh, I haven't seen that word in a while, or I haven't seen that before. So for example, you might say somatics to break your money ceiling, or you might just change one word, somatics to smash your money ceiling. And already you can start to feel there's more power, there's a shift. It's something different. So the words that you use, the meaning of the words, and the amount of meaning that you're packing into this short amount of space is really important as well. So these are the 4 components that we want to start as your foundation before you even think about writing your tagline or title. And this takes us then to the next step. How can you tell that your topic is unhinged? Today we have so many masterclasses and offers and also AI that can give us a lot of information. So we really want to make sure that you are also teaching an unhinged topic that they can't get anywhere else. So I love doing this exercise, and I often ask on my social media profiles, what is an unhinged workshop that nobody else is teaching? And it really puts you in a very different creative state. When you think about it, is anyone else teaching this? Is it unhinged? Is it unique? Is it different to anything else out there? This is so key. So how can you know So we then want to apply a few steps to make sure your topic is unhinged. So first of all, write out your topic keywords. What are the modalities that you use, or the transformation, or in which industry do you work? And then go and do a search on the internet or social media, and you can see exactly what other people are teaching. And you'll start to see, even just by that, how often you might see exact repetitions of the same type of transformation and titles that people are already teaching. Even when I do these exercises on my social media, you can even get a little hint about where people are teaching very similar things. Now, if you're on a web browser, you can then also see what are the SEO suggestions. Down the bottom, it might be like people also searched for, and it'll give you some suggestions. So this also gives you a clue about what people want to learn. So you can then kind of have a look at, is there a gap between what people are teaching and what people are actually searching for? And it can give you lots and lots of inspiration. And then once you have a pretty good idea about how people are mostly teaching it and what people are mostly searching for, we then want to run it through the unhinged method. Now, we want you to stand out. So we ask these questions about the topic that you are presenting. So here are some ways that you can take traditional topics and traditional questions and present them in a new way that other people might not have seen before. This will make people stop, pause, and be curious. So as you start to formulate your titles and taglines, ask yourself these questions. How can you apply old knowledge in a new way? Many people now are familiar with meditation or somatic work or yoga, but when you apply it to a completely new situation or a completely new way, it really grabs people's attention. Another way we might look at that is, how is no one else teaching it? What is an innovative framework? For example, my first business in human design, I really struggled to gain traction because I was teaching it in a very similar way. And I would see other human design experts take off because they would apply it to their own systems, or they would just come up with a framework with their own name. And because it was mysterious and people were curious, it makes you want to go and sign up to their lead generation. Sometimes something so simple as putting the 5 archetypes of your marketing or the 3 levels of healing can be just enough to take someone's attention, like, I've never heard that before, and make them click. And then the last 2 we kind of talked about before. How can you add more meaning in less words? Rearrange the title, change some of the words. I like to call it my semantic Rolodex. Maybe some people won't remember what that is, but you kind of would go through different numbers, and I like to do this with words. And with each of the words, I go through and think, is there another word? And I keep changing it out until I can find the most powerful or magnetic or unhinged words that really boost the power of a title. So if you run your titles and your taglines through these questions, you'll start to see how you go from a kind of meh title to a yeah title, from a boring title to a bold and brave title. Just doing some of these tips and tricks will really take your titles and taglines to the next level. And so I want to run through a couple of examples here. And this is something I'm also going to be doing micro mentorship inside the club, where you can come with your taglines and your titles and get one-on-one micro mentorship with me. Inside the club, there are various clubhouses where you can get so much different advice depending on whether you are still in the healing and reinvention stage, or if you're in the business incubation stage, or if you need mentorship or advice or marketing and business strategy. You have clubhouses for basically every single little thing. So we have conversation clubs, we have masterclass and course clubs, and we also have micro mentorship where you can ask personal questions and get one-on-one mentorship using my video app. So I'm one of the mentors, and I will be helping people with taglines and titles. So you can come with your taglines, your titles, your offers, so I can advise you and help you to turn them into unhinged products that really stand out. And it's really one of my favorite features of the club, even though, because we are paying back members to buy their workshops and to buy their services, which are then gifted to other members, there is already so much value and everybody gets a return on their investment, their annual membership. But there is just so many useful ways as well that you can really raise up your business, your healing, your confidence, your conviction using these services. Because I believe that when we collaborate and we do this transparent sharing, we all learn from each other. And that's why I even did these offer and workshop clubhouses, because when you are reading how everybody else is writing about their offers and the different workshop titles, it is going to inspire you and help you also take your offers to the next level. So I just love as well when we get to read everybody's work next to each other. It becomes such an inspiring space. But even if you don't join and get professional advice on your taglines and titles, you can still run your own titles through this mini incubator, through this mini tutorial that I've just given, and still take your titles to the next level. So I want to show you a little bit in practice, in an example of how this looks like. So we have this title: I help women transform past pain into purpose and return to themselves. So if we run it through the Unhinged Incubator, we start to ask questions like, how can we add conviction? How can we make a promise? How can we add more clarity? Who is this for? What's the deadline? Is there a unique framework that I can add? Are there power words? Can I make it more creative? And we can start to see how we can change words or get more specific to add more meaning and to add more magnetism. So instead of past pain, you might say heal broken relationships. Now that is very specific, but when you can master an audience of one with a product of one, then you start to build an audience. You can change this later. You might have another workshop that has another pain point and another target audience, and that's okay. But we want to make sure that people know exactly who this is for. So now if I read it out, I help women heal broken relationships with my 4-step bold method to unlock their love archetype. Now, this is obviously much more specific. We went way deeper into a niche, a target audience, a unique method, and added curiosity. Now ask yourself, are you more curious? Are you now wanting to know, well, what's the bold method? What's my love archetype? So you can see how these elements can really add curiosity, can really make people want to go and click. Let's look at the second one: the neuroscience approach to release old patterning and heal childhood wounds. Now, somatic work, neuroscience work, it's pretty common that it's going to relate to repatterning and healing wounds and changing behaviors and rewiring things. But again, if we run it through the Unhinged Incubator, we have to start asking ourselves, well, what's the promise? What's the clarifier? Who is this for? Is there a deadline? Now I'm going to read the second title: Stop rumination and punishment loops in my 30-day somatic childhood fantasy rewrite. So you can see right there, I said childhood fantasy. This is a little bit about showing an old modality in a new way. When you take something out of context, it instantly adds interest. So sure, you might know that somatic work heals repatterning and childhood wounds, but now we've gone way more specific and we're using a word that feels really out of context: childhood fantasy. So it makes you stop because you don't understand it. Your brain hasn't seen this pattern before. It's a disruptor, and that is what gets attention. That's what makes it feel unhinged. That's what makes it feel different from anything else there. And that is what will help sell out your offer or your workshop. So if you are joining me in the club, now I want you to go and post 1 to 3 workshop or masterclass titles and make them as unhinged as possible. And you can also apply this for when you post your offer. And then you get to see what is the feedback and the reaction to your offers and workshops based on how many votes that you get. And this is also how it becomes this really great natural way to gather market research in a safe space before you might even go and launch that out in the real world. Because if you get lots of votes, you know that you have a hot topic. And if maybe you don't get many votes, then run it through the Unhinged Incubator again and up the ante, up the hook, up the magnetism, and you can then start to see how it attracts more people. So now go and apply this Unhinged workshop and you will start to see how you sell out everything that you put out there. And if this short workshop has already upped the level of your business or the way that you see your services, come into the club, because all of these little mentorship moments are going to take you to the next level. And there are so many diverse experts in there that you can ask for advice and who are teaching all of their expertise, so it can become a one-stop club for your healing, your nervous system regulation, for your business incubation, for your marketing, for your networking, for getting clients, for building confidence, for developing your thought leadership. There are spaces to approach this problem from every possible angle, because that is really how we unlock our next upgrades. So if you are looking for that exact transformation and you want to be a part of a community where you are encouraged to interact, to lead workshops, to create offers, to have conversations with each other, then the club is the portal to your next upgrade.